Welcome to the Royal University of Phnom Penh. This unit is about reporting of data for documentation of assessment. I will present you the learning outcomes of this unit, introduction to report of data, prompts or report writings, report layouts, a brief sample of data reportings, and the assignment tasks. Upon completion of this unit, you should be able to identify key components of a report, organize report in an appropriate layout, analyze data gathered from questionnaires, interviews, and observation studies, interpret and analyze data in informative approaches, and write simple report of findings. Introduction to report writing of data. After collecting and analyzing the data, the researcher have to accomplish the task of drawing inferences followed by report writings. This has to be done very carefully, otherwise the conclusions may get drawn and the whole purpose of doing research may get vitiated. It is only through interpretation that the researcher can expose relations and processes that underlie his findings. In case of hypothesis testing studies, if hypotheses are tested and upheld several times, the researchers may arrive at generalizations. Meaning of interpretations. Interpretation refers to the task of drawing inferences from the collected facts after an analytical and/or experimental study. In one sense, interpretation is concerned with relationships within the collected data, partially overlapping analysis. In fact, it is a search for broader meanings of research findings. Thus, interpretation is the device through which the factor that seem to explain what has been observed by researchers in the course of the study can be better understood, and it also provides a theoretical conceptions which can serve as a guide for further researches. Why interpretation? Interpretation is essential for the simple reason that the usefulness and utilities of research findings lies in proper interpretation. It is being considered a basic component of research process because of the following reasons. The first reason, it is through interpretation that the researcher can well understand the abstract principles that works beneath his findings, links up his findings with those of other studies having the same abstract principles, and thereby can predict about the concrete worlds of events. Fresh inquiries can test these predictions later on. These may be continuities in research can be maintained. Second reason, interpretations leads to the establishment of explanatory concepts that can serve as a guide for future research studies. It opens new avenues of intellectual adventures and stimulates the quest of more knowledge. The third reason, researchers can better appreciate only through interpretation why his findings are, what they are, and can make others to understand the real significance of his research findings. The fourth reason, the interpretation of the findings of exploratory research study often results into hypotheses for experimental research and such interpretations is involved in the transitions from exploratory to experimental research. Since an exploratory study does not have a hypothesis to start with, the findings of such a studies have to be interpreted on a post factum basis, in which case the interpretation is technically described as a post factum interpretation. Techniques of interpretations. The task of interpretation is not an easy job. Rather, it requires a great skills and dexterity on the part of researchers. Interpretation is an art that one learns through practice and experience. The researchers may, at times, seek the guidance from experts for accomplishing the task of interpretation. The technique of interpretations often involves the following steps. First step, researchers must give reasonable explanations of the relationships which he has found, and he must interpret the lines of relationship in terms of the underlying processes and must try to find out the thread of uniformities that lies under the surface layer of his diversified research findings. In fact, this is the technique of how generalizations should be done and concepts to be formulated. Second step, extraneous information is collected during the studies must be considered while interpreting the final results of research studies, for it may prove to be a key factor in understanding the problems under consideration. Third step, it is advisable, before embarking upon final interpretation, to consult someone having insights into the studies and who is frank and honest and will not hesitate to point out omissions and errors in logical argumentation. Such a consultation will result in correct interpretation and thus will enhance the utilities of research results. Fourth step, researchers must accomplish the task of interpretation only after considering all relevant factors affecting the problem to avoid false generalization. He must be in no hurry while interpreting results, for quite often the conclusion which appear to be all right at the beginning may not at all be accurate. Precautions in interpretation. One should always remember that even as the data are properly collected and analyzed, wrong interpretation would lead to inaccurate conclusion. It is, therefore, absolutely essential that the task of interpretation be accomplished with patience, in an impartial manner, and also in correct perspective. Researchers must pay attention to the following points for correct interpretation. At the outset, researchers must invariably certify himself that the data are appropriate, trustworthy, and adequate for drawing inferences. The data reflects good homogeneity. Proper analysis has been done through statistical methods. The researchers must remain cautious about the errors that can possibly arise in the process of interpreting results. Errors can arise due to the false generalizations and or due to wrong interpretation of statistical measures, such as the applications of findings beyond the range of observations, identification of correlation with the causations and the likes. Another major pitfall is the tendency to affirm that definite relationships exist on the basis of confirmation of particular hypotheses. In fact, the positive test results accepting the hypothesis must be interpreted as being in accord with the hypothesis rather than as confirming the validity of the hypothesis. The researchers must remain vigilant about all such things so that for generalization may not take place. He should be well equipped with and must know the correct use of statistical measures for drawing inferences concerning his studies. He must always keep in view that the task of interpretation is very much intertwined with analysis and cannot be distinctly separated. As such, he must take the task of interpretations as a special aspect of analysis and accordingly must take all those precautions that one usually observes while going through the process of analysis, with precautions concerning the reliability of data, computational checks, validations, and comparison of results. Researchers must never lose sight of the facts that his task is not only to make sensitive observation of relevant occurrences, but also to identify and disengage the factors that are initially hidden to the eyes. This will enable him to do his job of interpretation on proper lines. Broad generalization should be avoided as most research is not amenable to it, because the coverage may be restricted to a particular times, a particular areas, a particular conditions. Such restriction, if any, must be invariably be specified, and the results must be framed within their limits. The researchers must remember that, ideally in the course of a research study, there should be constant interaction between initial hypotheses, empirical observations, and theoretical conceptions. It is exactly in this area of interactions between theoretical orientations and empirical observation that opportunities for originalities and creativity light. He must pay particular attention to these aspects while engaged in the task of interpretations. Significance of writing research reports is considered a major component of the research studies, for the research tasks remain incomplete till the report has been presented and or written. As a matter of fact, even the most brilliant hypotheses, highly well designed and conducted research studies, and the most striking generalizations and findings are of little value unless they are effectively communicated to others. The purpose of research is not well served unless the findings are made known to others. Research results must invariably enter the general store of knowledge. All this explains the significance of writing research reports. There are people who do not consider writing of reports as an integral part of the research process. But the general opinion is in favor of treating the presentation of research results or the writing of reports as a part and parcel of the research projects. Writing a report is the last step in a research study and requires a set of skills somewhat different from those called for in aspects of the early stages of research. This task should be accomplished by the researchers with utmost care. He might fix the existence and guidance of experts for the purpose. Different steps in writing research reports are the product of slow, painstaking, accurate, inductive works. The usual steps involved in writing reports are logical analysis of the subject matter, preparation of the final outline, preparation of the rough draft, rewriting and policing, preparation of the final bibliographies, and writing the final draft. Through all these steps are self-explanatory, yet a brief mention of each one of these will be appropriate for better understanding. Logical analysis of a subject matter is the first step, which is primarily concerned with the development of a subject. There are two ways in which to develop a subject, logically and chronologically. The logical development is made on the basis of mental connections and association between one thing and another by means of analysis. Local treatment often consists in developing the material from the simple possible to the most complex structures. Chronological development is based on a connection or sequence in time or occurrence. The direction for doing or making something usually follow the chronological orders. Preparation of the final outlines is the next step in writing the research report. Outlines are the frameworks upon which long written works are constructed. They are an aid to the logical organizations of the material and a reminder of the points to be stressed in the report. Preparation for the rough draft. These follow the logical analysis of the subjects and the preparation of the final outline. Such a step is of utmost importance for the researchers to write down what he has done in the context of his research studies. He will write down the procedures adopted by him in collecting the materials for his studies, along with various limitations faced by him, the techniques of analysis adopted by him, the broad findings and generalizations, and the various suggestions he wants to offer regarding the problem concerned. Rewriting and polishing of the rough draft. These steps happen to be the most difficult parts of all formal writings. Usually, this step requires more time than the writing of the rough draft. The careful revisions make the difference between a mediocre and a good piece of writing. While rewriting and polishing, one should check the report for weaknesses in logical development or presentation. The researcher should also see whether or not the materials as it is presented have unity and cohesion. Does the report stand upright and firm and exhibit a defined pattern like a marble arch? Or does it resemble an old wall of mothering cement and loose bricks? In addition, the researcher should give due attention to the fact that in his rough draft, he has been consistent or not. He should check the mechanics of writing, spellings, and usage. Preparation of final bibliographies, which is generally appended to the research report, is a list of books in some ways pertinent to the research which has been done. It should contain all those works which the researchers has consulted. The bibliography should be arranged alphabetically and may be divided into two parts. The first part may contain the names of books and pamphlets, and the second part may contain the names of magazine and newspaper articles. Generally, this pattern of bibliographies is considered convenient and satisfactory from the point of view of readers, though it is not the only ways of presenting bibliographies. Prompts on report writings. Avoid long involved sentences and overuse of polysyllabic words. Use the active voice instead of the passive voice. Avoid excessive use of nouns as adjectives. Don't hide your finding in non-committal statements. It has to be positive. Keep specialized jargons to a minimum. Keep technical abbreviation and acronyms to a minimum. Avoid repeating facts and shorts. Be concise and succinct.
You're going to learn more about how to write a survey report. But before we start writing one, we need to understand what a survey is. So, what is a survey? Basically, by asking people questions, you will understand what people think or why they do certain actions. So that is a survey. You design questionnaires and you ask people questions and you learn more about them. So this is a survey. For example, PBL. In your PBL projects, you will design questionnaires and you have a bunch of questions to ask people, your interviewee. And then you collect the data, the information. You can answer. You will use these information, data, and statistic to answer the questions set in your PBL project. So this is a survey. Then, what is a survey report? Of course, you conduct a survey, you have data, you have information, you have statistics. Then you need to summarize this information and present your findings to people. Okay, if not, then it will be meaningless to do a survey, right? So you will need a survey report to summarize the findings. A survey report is a summary of your survey. And when you write a survey report, there's a particular structure that you can follow, but it's actually pretty simple. Basically, you will have the introduction, the main body, and the conclusion. And in the introduction, you will ask yourself why, what, and how to give the background information of a survey. And then, in the main body paragraphs, you present your findings and analysis. And at the end, you summarize all your points, and if you want to, or if needed, you can give recommendations in the conclusion. Let's take a deeper look in each part. Let's first start with the introduction. As I said, the introduction is for you to give background information of your survey. So there are actually a few questions you can answer to write your introduction, such as these, okay? You can ask yourself what the purpose, aim of this survey is. Okay, and other questions. When did you do the survey? How was the information gathered? What kind of questions did you ask in the survey? And how many people answered your survey, and who were they? If you answer these questions, basically you write your introduction. Let's take a look at this sample by answering the questions I've just asked. What is the purpose and aim of this survey? Then you answer, the survey is about, the aim of this survey is to understand, to find out, blah, blah, blah. And when do you do the survey? Then you will answer, this survey was conducted on the day, the time. How was the information gathered? Oh, the information was collected through the internet using blah, blah, blah. What kind of questions did you ask in the survey? The survey has several parts, and the first part, the second part, the third part, etc., etc. So you explain the design of the survey. You can also answer how many people answered and who were they. So you answer there were how many respondents, and they were students, teacher, elderly, teenagers, etc. And at the end, you conclude your introduction with a thesis statement. So basically, a thesis statement is a sentence to summarize the whole survey report, the main idea. You can write like this. In the following parts, findings from this survey will be presented and analyzed. So you conclude your introduction with a very clear sentence. And for the introduction, you don't really need to write a lot of words. Around 50 to 60 words will do. Make sure it's short, clear, precise, and explain the purpose of your survey. Okay. Now we move to the main body. Okay, we'll take a look at one paragraph as an example. In the main body, you need to present your findings. Okay, but before writing a paragraph, always remember to add a subheading. Subheading is a subtitle, so that when readers read that paragraph, before reading your paragraph, seeing this subtitle, he or she immediately will know what you're going to talk about in that paragraph. So a subtitle, subheading is very important. And then you start with a topic sentence. A topic sentence is one sentence that can summarize the whole paragraph. And then after the topic sentence, you have your finding. You elaborate your findings, you talk about the data and statistics, you summarize the information. After you talk about the findings, you have the concluding sentence to conclude this paragraph, to end this paragraph. Basically, you just need to repeat your topic sentence again, but in other wordings. You paraphrase it. Okay? This is the structure of one main body paragraph. Let's take a look at this sample. For example, the topic sentence. Oh, from the first part of the survey, we learn more about the most popular celebrity in the music industry. So just one sentence, one main idea. And then you talk about the findings. You can use percentage, you can use fractions, okay? You can use, these to analyze your statistic, the data. You can say how many percentage of the students picked who as their favorite celebrity in the music industry, blah blah blah, and continue and write your findings. Okay, after you finish presenting your findings, you will have one sentence to conclude the paragraph. As I said, rephrase the topic sentence to make it your concluding sentence. You can write like, therefore, a group thought that blah 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 is the most popular celebrity in the music industry. Just one sentence and the paragraph. Alright? And you don't need to write a lot as well. Around 60 to 80 words will do. I'm sure if you try to explain all the findings in detail, you'll write more than 60 to 80 words. So this is the structure of one paragraph, and of course you can repeat this structure and write the second paragraph, the third paragraph in the main body. So one paragraph, one finding, one paragraph, one main idea. Then it will be very clear. It will be well structured, and everything, the ideas will be very coherent in one paragraph. Okay. So you can write 2 to 3 paragraphs in your main body. And then after you finish presenting all your findings, then you have to write your conclusion. Remember, never add any new idea in the conclusion. Do not add any new idea in the conclusion. The conclusion is for you to summarize all the points that you have mentioned in the main paragraphs, okay? So don't add anything new. And also, it doesn't need to be long. Around 50 to 60 words will do. And you can always start your conclusion with these words like to conclude, in conclusion, to summarize, in short, all in all, etc. And then you summarize the points, okay? First point, second point, third point, the reasons. And then always end your conclusion with one concluding sentence as well. Therefore, blah, 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 blah. Alright? So this is how you write a conclusion. And of course, if you like, you can add some recommendations as well. But if you don't add that, it's fine too. So that's your conclusion. Okay, so that's it for the structure of a survey report. Now we'll quickly take a look at the language that should be used in a survey report. Remember, when you write a survey report, always use formal language. Don't use spoken language, okay? Formal written language. Therefore, we don't use contraction. We don't say, oh, I don't like it, it isn't right, okay? Do not use contraction. And then you can also use passive voice so that it will be more formal, okay, less personal. For example, instead of saying I conduct the survey, you can say the survey was conducted blah blah blah. And also, because you need to explain the data collected in your questionnaire, you can always use reported speech to report what the interviewee said, okay? For example, you can say the interviewee said that blah 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 blah. So this is reported speech. Alright? So basically that's it. You learn about the structure, the language of a survey report. You should be able to start planning your
Abstracts. Abstracts have to be brief, maximum 1 page. Writing a clear, concise abstract is an art. Summaries, including the nutshell of your results and conclusions. Include the dates and locations. Write abstract last, no page numbers. Must match the rest of your findings. Title page. On the title page, you should write the name of the projects, researcher names, supervisor names, institutions, and the date. On the table contents. The table content should include the headings, subheadings, and page numbers. Introduction page of research report. These parts of the papers present the background, justifications, and relevance of the study or surveys. State the problem and objectives. Hypothesis is applicable to be tested. Brief background with cited review of literatures. Relate the problem and significance to the disciplines. Paraphrase, not plagiarize. Use a wide variety of sources, from research journals to books or the internet. Include at least one print source. Citations. Information learned from outside sources needs to be cited in the introductions, like writing footnotes only easier. You can follow the following rules. Rule 1. Cite all sources that refer to information on your species, experiments, or study site. Rule 2. Cite all sources that backs up your conclusions. Rule 3. Cite anything that brings in the facts not directly taken from your own observations. Rule 4. When you are in doubt, you have to cite. Example of proper citations. There are several ways of citations. In this part, we discuss APA styles. APA in text citation styles use the author last name and the year of publications. For example, Phil 2005. For direct quotations, include the page numbers as well. For example, Phil 2005 P14. For sources such as websites and ebooks that have no page numbers, use a paragraph numbers. For example, Phil 2005 para 1. Please have a look at a summary on this page. Study how the citation is written. Variation in citations. This part is example of how to do citations. How you write one author, how to write two authors, three or more authors, or no authors, or only an editor, citing expert you have spoken to. So you study these examples and then practice do your own citations. Materials and methods. Describe exactly what you used to do in your research. Methods, procedures, sampling dates, locations, methods used, concise but detailed enough that a reader could duplicate your investigation. Standard procedure description should be kept extremely concise, including proper label diagrams or photograph of any setups. In the field of studies, a site description is required, complete with site visits. Computer software should be fully cited, including the version used. Statistics used to analyze your data should be included and cited. Results. Research results contain a descriptions and interpretation of the data, include qualitative observations you made during the studies, not just data summarizations, not just pages of tables and figures. Tell the reader exactly what you found, what patterns, trends, relationships observed, photos, diagrams, or graphs that visually describe your results. Here example how results are presented. It is important to label graphs or table correctly. Tables have to be numbered. Statistics below indicate how people use transportation to schools. Analyze the results. Do not make generalized statements that are not based on your data, known facts, or reasons. Relate your findings to other studies. Cite those studies. Use proper citation guidelines. Draw positive conclusions from your studies whenever possible. Performing comparative tests. In performing comparative tests, we can use computer software or calculator program to look for statistically significant differences between data from experimentals and control groups. For standard deviations, we can deviate of data from their means, interpret the information after calculations. For t-tests, for data sets that follow normal distributions. In chi-squares, we can compare data in percent forms into two categories. Diversity indexes compares species, diversities, and dominance between different groups. Differences into sets of data by examining a sample of data from each population. Analyze and discuss. Results should be interpreted and explained, critically evaluated, and compared to other reports. The results section presents the news. The discussion section contains the editorials. Analyze the results. It is important to interpret statistics properly. To do so, don't make broad statements from small samples. Use p-values 0.05 that differences have occurred from chance alone. Examine the amount and possible sources of variabilities in your data, including experimental errors. Examine your results for bias and evaluate its effects. Develop arguments for and against your hypotheses and interpretations. Look at your data from as many points of view as possible. Conclusions. Conclusion is a brief summary of your findings. Follow with a set of clear statements you believe explain your results. You have to make sure whether your hypothesis was valid or invalid. Literature cited. Literature citation is about references you use and refer to in your papers. You should organize the citation in alphabetical orders by authors. If you cite information from several pages by the same authors, you should list most recent first, indent second and succeeding lines. Here is example of references you should follow. You can follow either APA styles or MLA styles. So please discuss your work with your departments or your supervisors. Acknowledgements. For acknowledgement page, you should identify the major people who gave you assistance and give them the thanks they deserve. Appendixes. Appendix is about additional pictures and or material you wish to include. Make sure any appendixes are listed in the table of contents. Don't stuff this section unnecessarily because it will not win your scores or points. Common problems in report writings. If you fail to use, evaluate, and interpret your data, it's the most common problem students have in report writings. Ignoring results because they differ from textbook generalizations. Bringing too much irrelevant information into reports and making small differences seem important. Discarding data because of variabilities and biases. Improperly labels and cited figures and tables. Here is a pre-sample of data explanations. The p-values can be arbitrarily divided with those expressed as proportions ranging from 0.00 to 1.00 and those expressed as percentages ranging from 0 to 100 as follows. As you can see, data can be divided into proportions and the percentage. 0.00 equals 0% and 0.49 equals 49%. As you can see, the highest p-value, the easier the task is for the groups. Study Class A and Class B and make the comparison between the two groups and try to understand how the p-values is calculated and interpreted. A brief sample of data reporting. The main purpose of progress tests is to measure whether the student has mastered the instructions, or it can be said that how much students have understood what has been taught. In order to learn about the student performance and their improvements, we are studying the raw scores of two classes A and B, which would give us more objective information. Based on the raw scores from Class A, they indicate that the majority of students obtain scores lower than the means. Means just equals 63. And we can also learn that the mean from this group is higher than the median, 60, which create the positively skewed distributions. This shows that most of students' scores appear toward the lower ends of the score scales, so it is assumed that the test was difficult. After calculations, we have more evidences to prove that the mean is quite below the highest possible scores, and the range is equals 1/2 of the raw score scales, which reveals that the class is very heterogeneous, and the task itself appears complicated. A standard deviation from this group is close to 1/3 of the range, which reflects scores that are dispersed throughout the range. To make sure if the instrument used generates any reliable information, we have to examine the test items closely in order to find out if they are well selected or designed. Based on the calculation of the item difficulties and discrimination index, we find that item 7, P equals 0.4, D equals 0, and 10 P equals 0.6 and D equals 0 are relatively not only difficult, but they do not distinguish between the lower and the upper groups. Also, item 2, P equals 0.8, D equals 0.0, do not give us any discriminations and is moderately easy. These items somehow should be taken into consideration or discarded. However, if the first two items are designed to spread out examinee scores, they could be applied in the norm reference test, while item 2 is appropriately used for criterion reference test if we intend to measure the mastery materials. In comparing with class B, we learned that the standard deviation in class A is equal 14.94 is higher than the one in class B, standard deviation equal 12.29. This indicates that the class A is more homogeneous than the student in class A. According to raw scores obtained from class B, they indicate the majority of students receive. Now let's view a video clips of how to write a descriptive report based on APA styles.
In this video, we are going to look into how to report descriptive and frequency analysis in APA style. Now I've created this template here to report categorical variable like gender, mean scores for age, report a construct CSR consisting of multiple items, and another construct if, for example, you have measured a variable across different categories and you want to report a particular construct in your study across different groups. In this case, the group is countries. Now here is this template and here is my data. I've used Blue Sky Statistics. It's a free to use software based on R. There are videos available on the YouTube channel on how to download, how to start using Blue Sky Statistics. Now here is my data and I'm interested in frequency analysis for gender. Now how to do this? Go to Analysis, Summary Analysis, Frequency Table. And I'm interested in the frequencies for gender, like how many male and how many female respondents were there in the study. So you select gender from here, the source variables, and put it in the selected variables. Press OK. And here are the results. Gender, male, represented by 1. The frequency is 414. Gender female, represented by 2. The frequency is 360. Here is the percentage, cumulative percentage, valid percentage, and valid cumulative percentage. Now in order to export this table into Microsoft Word or Excel, just right click on it and you can export it to Excel, Word, PDF, or copy it to clipboard. If you copy it to clipboard, it is copied in the form of text rather than a table. So it's always a good idea to do it in Excel or Word. In this case, let's use Word. It might take a few seconds. Here it is. It's done. What you need to do is you can simply copy it from here. Just click this. If you hover around the table, you'll get this mark here. Just select it. Right click, copy, and you can paste it here in your main document. Okay, this is an empty column. I don't need it. Just select it, press backspace, and it will be deleted. We do not normally report cumulative valid or valid cumulative percentage, so just select it, press backspace, and it will be deleted. We are not interested in not applicable as well, so just select them and press backspace, it will be removed. In APS style, we've got borders at the top, at the bottom, and on the top row, you've got a bottom border as well. So just select the whole table, and from borders here, select bottom border. So this is how you can format the table in APS style. Apart from this, what you will need is, you will need to write in table, let's say number it 1, and frequency distribution for gender, and in APS style this is in italics. So this is how you can report your table in APS style. Now you just need to add the text here. The sample of hotel customers, this was from where the data was collected. The respondents consisted of 53.49 male respondents. We can go up to 3 decimal points if more precision is required in APS style, but normally we do 2 decimal points. And 46.51 female respondents. And the total sample size is, just go back, and here is your total sample size, the number of observations, that is 774. You can obviously mention the number of male and female respondents. This is how you can report your descriptive or frequency distribution for a categorical variable. You can right click on it, arrange the table, auto fit to window. Now next is descriptive statistics for the variable gender. It's not a categorical variable in this study, so we will have to take the mean of this particular variable. Now how to do this? Go to again Blue Sky Statistics, Analysis, Summary Analysis, Numerical Statistical Analysis. I'm interested in age, so select it from source variable, add it into selected variables. I'm not interested in grouping the variable, so just put it back. I'm interested in mean and standard deviation, press OK. So the mean is 29.45 if you round it off, 29.45, and the standard deviation is 8.27. So here it is. Now you have reported descriptives for age as well. Next up is CSR, which is actually measured through 8 different items, and it's a construct in this study. So how do you report a construct in this study? So descriptive statistics, I'm interested in CSR. So analysis, summary analysis, numerical statistical analysis. I put it back in here, and I'm interested in CSR. But I'm also interested in the overall mean score for CSR. So I've already transformed the variable and just select it from here and put it here. I'm interested in mean, standard deviation, minimum, maximum. That's it. Okay. Now the format is a bit different as compared to SPSS, or what we normally report in our thesis or research papers. So we can change the format. Let's first copy it, export it to a Word. Here it is. Just copy it from here and put it in your main document, and we can arrange it later. So descriptive statistics for CSR. Now we are interested in reporting the overall mean score of CSR. So the overall mean score of CSR was 3.841 with the standard deviation of 0.671 So we'll add a preceding 0 because if the standard deviation can go higher or can go over 1, then we add a preceding 0 in APA style. If it does not, or if you know that it won't go over 1, then we do not add a preceding 0. Now, what does this overall mean score show? This shows that the perception in the customers with regards to CSR is positive, because the scale in the study was from strongly disagree to strongly agree. The overall tendency of the customers show that the people have agreed to the statements rather than disagreeing with the statements. So there is a positive perception among the people with regards to CSR. So we'll remove the word negative. Now if we look, there are 8 items for CSR. The highest mean is for CSR 1. So CSR 1 has the highest mean value. This indicates that, so now you have to go back to the CSR 1 item. What does that mean? In this case, it meant that the hotel showed responsibility towards the environment. So you have to describe what CSR 1 actually meant. Now you can reformat this whole table as we normally do in our research paper or research thesis. So go to table and create a new table. We normally report items, their minimum value, maximum value, their mean and standard deviation. So let's format the table a bit. Remove the extra spaces at the end. Let's do 1. Remove the spaces. The first column is items, the second is minimum value, next is maximum, this is mean score, and then standard deviation. Items CSR 1, CSR 2, CSR 3, CSR 4, CSR 5, CSR 6, CSR 7, but there are 8 items. So if you just press the tab, it will add new row, CSR 8. So what's the minimum value for CSR 1? What's the maximum? 1 and 5 is the minimum and maximum value. What's the mean for CSR 1? It's 3.976. What's the standard deviation? It's 0.892. Now you can add obviously the rest of them and just select all these columns, make them center, add a caption for the table. Let's say table 2, descriptive statistics for CSR construct, italics. Let's remove the border, select the whole table, go to borders, first select no borders, then bottom border, top border, and the first row will have a bottom border as well. So this is how you can report a table in APA style. Next up is, okay, let's for now remove it. Next up is now the construct. I want to report the construct based on a certain group. In this case, the group is countries. Now the data was collected from hotel customers in 3 countries that included Pakistan, China, and Italy. First, I need the sample size from each of the countries. Now, how do I get this? There are 2 ways. First, take the frequencies for countries, or there could be another way. Let's do the other way. Summary analysis. You can do summary statistics by group as well, but the problem is it won't give you standard deviations or other descriptive statistics. So what I'll do is I'll go to numerical statistical analysis. Let's see this. See, I've got CSR here and I've got country here, but it will only give you the mean scores. So apart from using this, or rather than using this, what I'll do is I'll go to analysis, summary analysis, numerical statistical analysis. I've already got it here, all these CSR items, but I do not need these 8 items now. I'm interested in the overall score across countries, and I want to group this by country. So select country and add it to group by. I do not want the minimum value, the maximum value. I just want the mean and standard deviation. There could be other options as well. If they meet your requirements, just click them and they'll be reported. Press OK. And here are the results. Just right click, export to Word. And here it is. Copy and put it in here so that you can write your results. So the Pakistan, so in case of Pakistan, the sample size was 312. In case of China, the sample size was 278. In case of Italy, the sample size is 181. Now, the descriptive statistics show that the mean score on the customer perception about CSR in hotel customers in Pakistan. So what was the mean score in Pakistan? The mean score was 3.58 if you round it off. The standard deviation in Pakistan was 0.68. For China, it was 4.077. Let's round it off. And the standard deviation was 0.58. And for Italy, it was 3.93. And the standard deviation was 0.62. So this is how you can report your descriptive and frequency analysis in APA style. You can leave this table here. Just click on this, remove the unnecessary column, right click, auto fit, window. You can remove unnecessary rows if you want. Just have to reformat it a bit. Let's remove this. Let's remove this. Let's remove this. We need a bottom border now. Select this, add a bottom border, do some formatting. Normally it's written as standard deviation. It's the mean. So look into your APA guide and you can format accordingly. I hope the video would have helped you understand how to report descriptive and frequency analysis in APA style. Thank you very much.
Now you come to the end of this unit, but you have to complete these assignments. It will help you to understand how to interpret the data and how to write a report. Directions. Based on a survey of the test scores performed by two groups of students, write a report to compare the group performance by the two groups. Then explain their implication for further teaching and learnings. Before you start writing, it is very important to understand the two tables. Study the two tables carefully, or you can refer to parts of the units. I hope you have learned a lot from this unit. Thank you. Thank you for your attention.